How's it going, everybody? My name's Carpo, and this will be my public service announcement, public message. That it seems like no matter what we do, we're screwed. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know, I put out a lot of videos where I talk about positive aspects of life and things that I think are important, but I really try to avoid negativity or pushing ideas that I particularly know that we cannot handle or do anything about. And while I've been talking about politics lately, it's not that I really believe that if Sanders is elected, he's going to be able to save us from Wall Street and bail us out. And I'm not ignorant to why people want to vote for either side, but also realizing that we do not live in a democratic society, and we're not a republic. We live in what you call a plutocracy, as was coined in 2005. The idea that it's a large corporation that's controlled by very few people. And as much as me as an American, I want to speak out and be political and be active and to care about the future of this country, I'm constantly fighting in my own mind with the reality that this country is nothing more than a staging ground for world domination. And you see, the people of this country don't represent the intention or how it's being used. The people who are really in charge of this are people that are above and beyond reproach. For example, even if Wall Street was taxed, even if, let's say, Sanders was elected, he found a way to, bring companies back and get Americans to start, building things here again and creating jobs, and everything is fine and dandy. No matter how good the economy gets, that's just more money that can be siphoned off and stolen by the Federal Reserve, which, for those of you who don't know, the Federal Reserve is a private institution. I believe it was 1913 when it was put into play, and around the same time we decided to start the federal tax system, and we've basically been being ripped off ever since by our government. But here's the thing. When people want to blame the government for this is why I stand up for the government, because the government is not the government. The government is owned by these people. And there is no way to put it this way. The Federal Reserve is above and beyond U.S. law. They are not regulated by any U.S. federal institution or governmental institution. And it was kept this way purposely. Alan Greenspan said it himself. We are above and beyond and do not answer to any government institution. So here we have these people who are printing your money, putting it out into circulation, and this is well known. Fiat money is what they call it. It's money that's printed without any gold backing, and we've been doing it since the 60s when we went off the gold standard. And these are things that I've known for decades, so I don't talk about them because I just start to assume that everyone knows this now. And then I meet so many people on a daily basis who have no idea that the Federal Reserve is not a government institution. So the people who are printing our money and the people who decide where the money goes and where it comes from aren't answerable to us as people, as citizens. Nor do we even have a full picture or scope of where the money comes from, how much is made, or where it goes. The only people who have access to that are the world bankers, the Rockefellers, Rothschilds. And these people own everything, okay? This goes beyond the 1%. These people are the 0.1% that make the 1% look like, poor folk. And the problem is that no government agency can handle this. No government agency can step up to the plate and do anything about it. I have a book. It's about this thick. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island, and it was given to me by someone who was involved in a tax class where they were talking about how, illegitimate taxes are on income, and how the tax system was basically created for us to pay the interest on the loans that are taken by these companies. And in 2008, everything that I feared was summed up in an actual event which nobody seems to be talking about anymore, which was the housing market crash. And in 2008, they were basically pumping in loans everywhere to people who couldn't pay. Then the rates were raised, and the belief is this is what happens, that the the crash, the Great Depression, was actually a caused event in order to consolidate banks and assets. and it's hard to deny that. Well, the 2008 crash was definitely a planned event. The loans that they were giving were massive, and they all did it at one time. And they all, Bank of America, Chase, they all dumped all these bad loans. Then they raised the rates, and the Fed raised the rates, and then all of a sudden people are having to default on their loans, and they reel it back in, call in all their loans, and the only way that we were told to bail them out was, and this is a shame on Obama, and this is why I'm just disgusted. We did what they call quantitative easing. Quantitative easing is where we put billions of dollars into the economy every year to try to make up for the money that was lost in that, for bailing out the banks. We bailed out the banks, remember? Well, what happened with that? Well, the bankers went on vacations, gave each other multi-million-dollar bonuses, and went on with life as normal. Are they repaying us? No, of course not. When did banks start to own us? Well over 100 years ago. And this is such well-known information that it just kind of disgusts me that I feel like people aren't aware of it. These are things that we have to realize, because when we want to fight among who, left or right wing, we don't, these are, anybody who's owned or backed by big business is part of the problem. And this is the only reason I'm speaking up on Bernie Sanders this time, is because he is only bought by the people, and I trust the man. He looks honest. Do I think his policies are all going to be perfect? No, of course not. Do I think it's going to solve the economic crisis? No, of course not. And that's where I believe that conservative, Democrat, I don't care what you call yourself, this is where we need to come together and realize the system is rigged, but we still have to at least put out the effort to vote. In other words, we can't throw out the entirety of it just because we dislike what's going on in certain aspects of our lives. So we still should vote, we still should be actively looking at the actual statistics, how much our country spends on things, and being aware of this, but at the same time, I don't blame those who have lost faith completely in the system and are just waiting for it to crumble. I spent 10-15 years waiting for the apocalypse, if you will. Not that I was just sitting waiting for it, but I just had the feeling that in my lifetime I was going to see a decline in society, that we had hit the peak, and that everything was going to go downhill from here. And I still kind of hold that belief in my heart. I don't want to, but if something does happen, I'm prepared for it. And I know my life would be affected by a worldwide disaster, economic collapse, but I'm prepared to handle it mentally. And so I don't know what to do. I don't even really know what my point is here, because half the time I'm saying, hey man, stand up for your rights, this country is important, that we can still pull out, and then I step back and look at the big picture and say, what is my country? What's it really founded on? I'm not talking about the founding fathers or a few people who in the early part of the country. I'm saying move forward. We created a constitution, we had a few states, but now we have a lot more people and a lot more ideas and a lot more rules and a lot more needs, and everything has to be adjusted. And this is why we have amendments to the Constitution. So everything needs to change, our whole way of thinking, but it needs to go beyond government. The people who are Trump supporters and the people who are Sanders supporters, many of them are here for the same cause and looking for the same purpose, a drastic change in government. But will a drastic change in government policy even be able to change something that's so corrupt that it goes to the very core of society? And these people's incomes, their interest rates, everything that they're earning off of us, the workers, where's that going? Well, it's not being taxed, it's not being documented. So there's no way to tax Wall Street if the people who have most of the money are so beyond Wall Street. You see what I'm saying? But we still have to try. So no, I don't think the solution is to tax just the rich in this country, although people have the right idea. It's about taxing the ultra-rich. And there was a time in this nation when the tax rate on extremely rich people was up to 90%, I believe. And so it's not too far off to think that, we need to get back to a more consistent way of, and I'm not saying everyone should give 90% if you're a millionaire, but we need to figure out a better system, and that has to start with us as individuals educating ourselves. It's daunting. So my only, parting thought would be to arm yourself and be aware and know what inflation is and realize that the buying power of the dollar has declined 96% in the last century since the Fed was created. And that's 96%. For those who don't know, Zimbabwe, when their economy collapsed, they had trillion-dollar bills and billion-dollar bills. I actually have one around here somewhere I ordered, but it was costing, I think it was like $100 billion for a dozen eggs. And that's true. It's a fact. You can buy the dollars on eBay and see them. It's because they had gotten so out of control from corruption. It was basically a smaller version and a quicker version of what's happening in America. But the wool's being pulled over people's eyes generation after generation. Grandparents say, oh, when I was a kid, a candy bar was a nickel. And then I'm saying, oh, when I was a kid, candy bar was only a quarter. And now the kids are saying, when I was a kid, they were 50 cents. Now they're a frickin' buck. I mean, what does that say about what's happening? And the minimum wage is not raising to meet that or to match that. And that's one of the things that frustrates me, say, about Trump when he said the minimum wage in this country is already too high. The problem is not minimum wage. The problem is not the workers. The workers make this country go. They make things happen. We are the people. And unfortunately, the average working class male is the one that's easiest to have the wool pulled over his eyes and especially the non-educated, folks who don't read and don't learn very much and get all their education from the news. It's a difficult task, but I think the only way out is to educate people and to keep them thinking rationally. But you still have to be angry. They say if you're not angry, you're not paying attention, and I agree with that. It's just learn to control that anger and to harness it, and don't deflect it onto someone because they're a liberal. Don't deflect that onto someone because they're a conservative. Because both of these people live in the same damn neighborhood and they both want the same damn thing. There's divisiveness being pushed between us because those who really have the power and those who really cause the problems are beyond reproach. And I don't know what to do about it. There's no way to call people out or to arrest these people. So what do? I'm always open for anybody's comment on that. I'd love to know what people think we can do about this problem, because I don't know. Not a clue.